In October of 2006, the Star Wars website launched the Darth Who contest, which would allow fans to choose Jacen's Sith name that would be revealed in book number 5. Over 8,500 entries were received in October and November of that year, and the names were reviewed and edited down to 500 possibilities, which were then whittled down further to 5 finalists by Del Rey and Lucasfilm staff, as well as the 3 authors. The 5 finalists were Darth Acheron, Darth Caedus, Darth Judicar, Darth Paxis, and Darth Terrell. But enough of that behind-the-scenes stuff. What were my actual memories of Tempest by Troy Denning? Well, I did remember that Tenel Ka was in this one. It's hard to miss when she's on the cover. But otherwise, my memories of the story as a whole were pretty shoddy. So, a brief summary. Han Solo and Leia Organa enrage their families by allying themselves with the Corellian insurgents. But even Han and Leia draw the line when they uncover a plot to ally the Corellians with Hapan nobles who aim to murder their pro-Alliance queen. And as Luke Skywalker's concern for his nephew Jacen Solo leads him into a life-or-death struggle with his fiercest foe, Han and Leia find themselves facing off against an unexpected enemy, their own son. So, as with the previous 2 books, Tempest follows at least 5 major plot lines here. The first is that Han and Leia are dispatched by the Corellian government to talk to Tenel Ka. They uncover this assassination plot against her and head off with one of the assassins to try to find out more information, and are ultimately branded enemies of the Galactic Alliance by their son Jacen. Over on Coruscant, Luke and Mara are preparing themselves to track down and face off against Lumiya, the Dark Lady of the Sith, and they're also still disagreeing about the best approach to take with their son. Jaina and Zekk are now working with the Jedi to help the Galactic Alliance, and they are also sent to Hapes to help Tenel Ka and figure out what's going on there. Alema Rar returns from the dead, wants to kill all the Skywalkers and Solos that she can, is very much mentally unhinged at this point, and allies herself with Lumiya. And finally, Jacen takes a break from persecuting Corellians and now Bothans to also head to Hapes to help Tenel Ka out with this coup situation. In this book, everyone gets to go to Hapes. So first, let's talk about Han and Leia. I feel like Han and Leia are maybe the most prominent of the subplots here, and I think that's partially because Troy Denning enjoys writing about them. In the previous 2 reviews, I really questioned what was going to be the breaking point that would make Han and Leia's careful involvement tip over to something that has consequences for them moving forward, and that's exactly what happens here. They're sent to Hapes to speak with Tenel Ka on this diplomatic thing. They're told that the Corellians are just hoping that maybe Tenel Ka will withdraw her support from the Galactic Alliance without outright allying with Corellia. But even Wedge is like, be careful, guys. I'm not sure what their plan is here, and this gives me a bad feeling. And as they find out, they were sent as a distraction so that assassins could kill Tenel Ka and her daughter Allana, and then presumably take over the Hapan government and withdraw their support from the Galactic Alliance, and maybe even throw in their lot with the Corellians here. And that's just a step too far for Han and Leia. They love Tenel Ka. She's like a daughter to them, even without knowing her relationship with Jacen. They support her, and they're never gonna go along with an assassination attempt like that. But of course, optics are very, very bad, especially when they leave with one of the assassins to try to find out more information. So Jacen basically puts out an arrest order for them. And then it escalates further that during the Battle of Hapes, that Jacen orders his flagship, the Star Destroyer Anakin Solo, a horrible name, no one likes that except for Jacen and Ben, to fire on his parents, to kill them. That if they're willing to betray the Galactic Alliance, he'd rather have them dead at this point. And so the story sort of ends for Han and Leia on a cliffhanger in that they are able to escape into hyperspace, but we don't know where they're going. We don't know what their next moves are. And Jacen's not willing to drop that arrest order because he doesn't want to show special preference towards his parents. So Han and Leia basically end the book on the run. From the beginning, I have sort of questioned Han so visibly siding with the Corellians here. Because on the one hand, I can understand loyalty to your home world, but on the other hand, Han's basically spent very little time on Corellia. Other than his childhood, he really only goes there for passing visits. So to a certain extent, Han's almost instant desire to help his homeworld out did take me somewhat awry. And I think part of that was Leia just saying, okay, cool, yeah, and going along with it. Because Leia is a Jedi, Leia should be having to balance those additional demands on her time. But instead, it almost seems like she's a Jedi in name, but she doesn't really have to answer to the Jedi Council, that she's not being dispatched places to do things, that she has the freedom to roam around with Han at will. And I suspect that in the next book and in future books, that won't be the case. And I felt like Aurra Sing was a very interesting character to pull into play here. She's now a character who spans trilogies. That we first saw her in this cameo appearance in The Phantom Menace, played a larger role in comic books where we found out that she was a Jedi Padawan, she was captured by pirates, she became a bounty hunter. And at first my thoughts were like, isn't she really old at this point? Like, how is she still a bounty hunter of repute here? The reason she has not really changed physically at all is because of her non-human status, that she doesn't know who her father was, but apparently he was a long-lived alien. A little bit of Troy Denning weirdness in there, and that she's drinking blood, but you know, Troy gonna Troy. Luke and Mara play a little bit larger of a role than they did in the previous two books. As the story opens, they're both on Coruscant. Luke is trying to reach out to Ben by this offer to spar with him. And I think in typical Luke fashion, he's taking it very slow. He wants to try to show Ben that this situation with Jacen is not working out, that especially in his fighting ability, he's just not getting the learning he needs to match up to the other young Jedi his own age, but he's taking it very, very slow. There is no active move to remove Ben from Jacen's tutelage until the very end of the story. And Mara's still there saying, yes, this is just what Ben needs. We don't want him to withdraw from the Force again. But at the same time, she also gets this sense in the Force that something bad is going to happen. But she's still like, yeah, keep him with Jacen. That's A-okay. Luke assigns one of the Jedi Masters, Tracina Lobi, to follow Ben and make sure that Lumiya does not have designs on him. And so Lobi is spying on Lumiya when Lumiya first encounters Alema, and they both kill her. So some of her message gets out, and in their investigation, they find that Galactic Alliance Guard safe house that Lumiya is staying at. Luke and Mara both build Shoto lightsabers, which Luke used in the Marvel comics whenever he had to fight against Lumiya. They head to this Ruku depot in Hapes because they're going to meet up with Ben there. And of course, Lumiya is waiting. This was all a big setup on Jacen's part that, in a way, he sort of wants to dispose of Lumiya. But at the same time, like, if she were able to take out his aunt or his uncle, he has digressed to the point that I don't think he would feel bad about it. But of course, they are not expecting Lumiya to also bring Alema Rar along, so it ends up being this big fight between Luke and Lumiya and Mara and Alema. Luke is very badly injured. Mara defeats Alema, but uncovers that they're both wearing dead man switches, and in fact, Lumiya's dead man switch does blow up. But Luke and Mara very much suspect that Lumiya survived to live another day. And then at the end of the book, they do. Luke removes Ben from Jacen's teaching. He says, you need to spend some time away from him. You know, I've been saying this for several books, but at least finally he's been removed from Jacen's vicinity, although I'm not sure how long that will last. Jaina and Zekk. They start out the book in their stealth X-Wings, waiting in an asteroid field at the edge of the Corellian system with this hidden Galactic Alliance fleet that's, I don't know, something about taking out the Corellian shipyards that they're not supposed to know about, but they know about. Anyway, they are then sent to Hapes because they see the Millennium Falcon heading to Hapes, and once they get there, Tenel Ka sends them to one of the Hapen worlds to call up one of her supporters, have her, the Ducha Algray, come and help. But when they arrive, they find that no one's there and that the Ducha's fleet has departed because she's actually one of the conspirators. They're sort of stuck there until Ben and Galactic Alliance Guard support show up to pick them up, and instead of going to Ruku Depot like Ben was told, they head back to Hapes, and they're there during that pivotal Battle of Hapes. They go EV, they're picked up by the Millennium Falcon, then the Millennium Falcon is hit by Jacen's Star Destroyer, and Han basically forces them to get in the escape pod and go to safety before the Millennium Falcon just goes into hyperspace. So Jaina has a bit more to do here. My only quibble is that it's mostly Jaina and Zekk interpersonal stuff. That finally, Jaina 100% friend zone Zekk. That she said, look, Zekk, I'm just not interested in you. You need to give up. And Zekk is like, okay, fine, I give up. And then she's like, Zekk, I think I like Zekk more now. And I'm like, she's like 30 now. Why is this her plot line? Speaking of Jaina's past relationships, Jag is back. Jag apparently was stuck on that Killik world for 2 years after Leia shot him down. But Jag is now completely estranged from his family. That basically, because the Fel family personally said, set Lobaka free, he won't attack the Chiss again. But then Jacen lied to his sister and manipulated her and her friends into attacking the Chiss. The Fel family have now completely lost their honor, and he basically believes that finding Alema Rar will let his family regain their honor, but he can never return to the Ascendancy because honor reasons. It just ruin his family's honor again. He has to permanently stay away. And this is such a sad development to me. On the one hand, it gives Jag a reason to stay in Galactic Alliance space for the time being, but the sense I got of the Fels was that while they weren't a very emotional family, they were a very close family. So to basically exile Jag, not just from the Chiss people, but from his mom and his dad and his sister, just seems completely unfair to me. And like there had to be a better solution here to have Jag in Jaina's vicinity more often instead of him being stuck back in Chiss space. Like, make him the Chiss go-between between the Chiss and the Galactic Alliance or something like that. Like, the fact that he can never see his family again is really depressing. Did I mention Tenel Ka and Allana are here? That this is the first time we've seen Allana not as a little tiny baby, which was cool. But I would say Tenel Ka's just here to have this plot against her, to talk with Jacen a little bit, and then to, off the page, lead this Hapes battle. And we don't even really get her POV until the epilogue. For Allana, I wish that her dialogue was not written like cutesy little kid voice where she's got like a speech impediment and she's like, Jacen! But she's 4. And I think it's difficult to write a 4-year-old. You don't want to write them to be older than they are. But again, choosing to have that like little kid dialect, didn't really like that choice. And now on to the baddies. Compared to books 1 and 2, Jacen is much less of a major character here than I expected. He knows about that sacrifice stuff that Lumiya talked about. He's worried that it means Tenel Ka and Allana, but when it seems that his parents are traitors, he's 100% ready to kill them and be like, well, that could be my sacrifice, you know? Get rid of my parents, they're trash anyway. I was a little surprised that Jacen was so quick to jump to conclusions here. He has been self-delusional, especially in the second book, but I felt like this went beyond self-delusion to just wanting to think the worst of someone without even considering the evidence against them. That even Tenel Ka's like, well, they said that they were firing on the assassins. And Jacen's like, nope, they're bad. They've turned against us. We need to get rid of them. And then most of Jacen's stuff here is just making sure that Allana is safe, realizing that there's an assassin after Allana, stopping the assassin from killing Allana. Like, if anything, I think this story just shows us how much he's willing to do to save his daughter and how much that will come into play in future books, I'm guessing. Lumiya now has 2 people to influence. She's like so committed to the Sith cause that she's willing to die in that fight on Ruku Depot if she has to, because like it's proven that Jacen is the one who will become the Sith that will save the galaxy. Like, okay, girl. And finally, Alema. Alema Rar is just such a mess at this point. In the Darkness trilogy, every time she encountered our heroes, especially Leia, she came out worse off. And at the same time, her mental state has really degraded. She still speaks in first person plural as though she were part of that Killick dark nest, even though she's the only one left. And she's obsessed with balance, with balancing the galaxy by getting rid of the Skywalkers and the Solos because they did her wrong. In trying to assassinate Jacen in the beginning, she shoots a poison dart into the World Brain, which I guess we had gotten a few references that the World Brain was still around, but I hadn't really thought about it. I was like, oh, whoa, interesting that they would still leave something like that, something so pivotal to use involved biotech there on Coruscant. But oops, Alema missed, and now it's dead, and he blames the Bothans for it. Alema teams up with Lumiya. She's willing to help the Sith because it seems the best way to achieve that balance that she wants. But she's honestly not a fighter on par with Luke or Mara or Leia or really anyone of that group. The way that she's gotten away so much is because they're hesitant to kill her. And that's exactly what happens in her fight with Mara. Mara knocks her out and is like, well, I can't kill someone who's unconscious. Alema's a survivor. She may not be good at what she does, but she's good at living for another book and another story. First issue was that for most of the book, I was reading it and I was like, wow, Troy Denning really toned down the violence here. Like, other than the fight between Lumiya and Alema and Tresina Lobi, where Lumiya cuts off her legs with her light whip, and then Alema cuts off her head with her lightsaber, I was like, this is surprisingly less violent for a Troy Denning novel than I expected. But then we got to the battle on Ruku Depot, and just like, there's a lot of limbs and blood flying around here, so my level of Troy Denning violence is like Tatooine Ghost level, not Star by Star level, and this was pretty close to Tatooine Ghost level for most of it until the end. So it's like, oh, Troy, why you gotta do that to me? You know I don't like that stuff. My second issue was that Tenel Ka felt like a very passive character here, and I really expected more from her. I think part of that is that Tenel Ka's identity as part Dathomiri, part Hapen, means that, especially in the Young Jedi Knights books, and then in, you know, Star by Star, she's a warrior. And so I expected to see Tenel Ka, the warrior queen. In particular, I expected the assassination attempt that we would have seen Tenel Ka taking out the assassins on her own. Like, even though Tenel Ka is missing part of her left arm, that does not stop her in any way from being a fierce, competent fighter. But because we see that assassination attempt from Han and Leia's POV, we don't really get a chance for Tenel Ka to be an amazing fighter. And then the rest of the story is Tenel Ka takes Allana to Jacen's Star Destroyer, and then she's commanding most of the Hapen fleet. But again, we're not in her POV. We see most of the battle from Jacen's point of view, or Han and Leia's point of view, or Jaina's point of view, other people. And then in the end, in the epilogue, we see her playing a diplomatic role, trying to achieve peace between Jacen and his family. And I just really wish that we could have seen more of Tenel Ka in an active role. Tenel Ka commanding people, Tenel Ka telling people what to do, and yes, Tenel Ka fighting. I would have loved that, but that's just not here. My third issue is, why does Jaina's plotline just have to be relationship drama? Even back in the new Jedi Order books, you know, she's going through the pain of losing her brother, she's withdrawing from the world, but she gets with Jag. And here, she finally tells Zekk, look, Zekk, you don't have a chance, you need to let it go, I just want to be your friend. And then Zekk being like, cool, I got it, leads to her respecting Zekk more, and more like, oh wow, Zekk, he's so capable, look at Zekk. And I'm like, girl, why? And then Jag returns here. They don't encounter each other, but they obviously will. I just wish Jaina had something to do that wasn't related to her relationship status. She's in her 30s at this point. There's so much more you could do with her. I think I was excited for her to be the leader of Rogue Squadron, to see Jaina in that leadership role, only for it to be taken out right from under her in the same book. So just don't give me spoilers, but I very much hope that Jaina's plotline going forward is not solely her relationship stuff, but also like more stuff beyond the fact that Jaina's a girl and Jaina needs to find a boy to get with. Like, my final issue with Tempest relates to the fact that Jacen's Sith journey was just treading water, and it makes me wonder, having now finished the first trilogy within this series of almost like 3 trilogies, maybe Jacen didn't need to partner up with Lumiya so early on. I don't know, it feels to me like in choosing to have this be a 9-book series that the authors are holding off on anyone confronting Jacen over his actions until further into the book. But at the same time, it makes me feel like Luke and the Jedi Council are just not doing their job. And so I think maybe when I get to the end of each of the trilogies within the series, I'll try to evaluate this. But it almost makes me wonder if the Galactic Alliance Civil War and Jacen's fall needed to be concurrently, or if there could have been a different order to those, because it does feel like, especially in this book, almost more time was devoted to this Hapen coup part of the Civil War, then to Jacen's progression as a Sith. So, in short, Tempest moves the action away from both Coruscant and Corellia to Hapes, where this coup attempt is underway and the lives of Tenel Ka and her daughter are at risk. I thought Han and Leia's plot window was interesting. They encounter a prequel era's character, which was surprising to me, and there were finally consequences for them hovering back and forth between committing treason against the Galactic Alliance or not. But while I enjoyed the move to Hapes and getting to see Tenel Ka again, I feel like the book really did her dirty by having her play such a minor passive role. And likewise, it felt like Jacen's descent to the dark side was a little bit on the back burner here, and that Tempest was more devoted to showing us how concerned he is about his daughter and what he will do to secure her safety. But with the book ending on a cliffhanger, especially in regards to Han and Leia's future, I'll be interested to see where the next book picks up. So next time, I'm going to be reading book number 4 in the Legacy of the Force series, Exile by Erin Alston.